The cash ban in the Senate. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian Heise here, and welcome to another episode of Heise Says. I've got my morning stein of coffee, and I thought we would have a look at this article and a few other things about the cash ban, now that it's passed through its third reading in the House of Representatives and is heading to the Senate. Remember that? I did a video on it, and we watched the live stream together. The huge debate that occurred in Parliament about this cash ban. Something that's going to have a fundamental effect on our abilities to spend sums of money. And most people were looking at their phones, probably Facebook, you reckon, or Instagram. What are the boomers in Parliament? What would they? Let me know in the comments what you think. I know, TikTok. It was TikTok. So guys, let's have a read through this article. This is by Nassim Khanem from ABC, and she's been talking to John Adams, particularly about this issue, which is good. It's getting out in the public. More people are talking about it. Whenever I go and get my 7-Eleven $1 coffee, not sponsored, but bloody hell, guys, $1, I always ask the cashiers if they know about this cash ban. They always look at me funny, and I go, yeah, mate, yeah, you're a criminal. You can't spend 10 grand. And it shocks them. It always shocks them. That's the thing. While there has been a lot of activity, a lot of outrage, particularly in the online community and people who are interested in these type of things, a lot of, I'd say, normies are only getting it from sources like ABC and the news. Has anyone seen any other mention of this other than this article in the news? Because cash isn't important, guys. No one uses cash. I hardly ever use cash, but the problem is when the system falls down, you want it. And while I know one of the issues for this is to ensure that people can remain out of the banking system, there is another fundamental issue with cash and the banking system that we have, which could negate any of the safety features having cash has, particularly if they have negative interest rates. Now, I did a video on that blog post from the IMF, and I will link to that here, up above. Or I'll cut it off as a separate video to make a shorter portion, because it is definitely something that people need to be aware of, where they have a dual physical cash and digital cash system, and then that kind of screws us even more. So let's have a look at this article. Cash ban law under review as MPs argue it would push people into clutches of the banks and restrict freedom. Now, I think our dear reporter is probably using a bit of poetic license to say MPs were arguing. I guess they were, putting their arguments forward, but all the people here weren't really listening, were they? Maybe MPs ignored what their constituents said. This is the most concerning thing to me, because let's jump, before we go any further in the article, let's just jump over here. We'll jump over here and have a look. I mean, here's the Australian Treasury, all the documents of it, and I will link to this in the references link. No submissions have been put out. A lot of people put a submission in. I put a submission in. Nothing's been put out. Probably because they're not used to handling more than one or two. They should at least put the numbers here. What's the part of the process? Maybe it's time to put in some freedom of information requests for a copy of all of the submissions. So, let's jump back to this while I take another shot of my Stein. It's good way to wake up on a Saturday, guys. A controversial bill to ban cash payments of $10,000 and impose 2-year jail sentences for people using cash for purchases above that limit has passed the lower house, but will not become law until after a Senate inquiry looks into the proposed laws. So, the Currency Restrictions on the Use of Cash Bill 2019 passed the House of Representatives on Thursday, with little to no engagement from our reps. Was your member there? Let me know in the comments. The proposed law would force Australians to use electronic transactions or checks over cash for payments above $10,000 and impose 2-year jail sentences and fines of up to $25,200 if they don't. Is this just Australian citizens, or is it just people in the nation of Australia? How's Crown Casino going to keep going, guys, with all their cash in hands? There were some interesting things, really, from this debate. from this debate, from this session in Parliament, the speeches of the people opposed to it, where Wilkie was talking about just Crown Casino, and Katter was expressing concern over some just ludicrous dealings. They're chasing after the easy money, which is just increased taxation here on us, more control. The proposed change was first flagged by the government's Black Economy Task Force as a way to stop criminal gangs using large cash purchases of cars, houses and jewellery to launder their gains from illegal activities. Okay, sure. Assistant Treasurer Mike Bilsuka had argued a $10,000 cash limit for transactions between businesses and individuals would help fight the cash economy by stamping out tax evasion, money laundering, and other crimes. We know that large amounts of cash are essential to the business model of criminal gangs, he said. The cash payment limit will also help to disrupt organised crime syndicates who try to wash the cash from the proceeds of manufacturing and selling drugs and other serious crimes through the legitimate economy. I look forward to working with the Senate to pass this important reform designed to protect honest Australians from being ripped off. So they're designed to protect us. So here we go. They're creating a situation of concern where the gangs are doing all these horrible things and using cash. So we'll put a restriction on it. We'll take away one of your freedoms to protect you. Now that's the issue here. Fundamentally, that's the issue. Are you happy to sacrifice a freedom for a potential safety, for some safety theatre? Let me know in the comments, guys. I don't think a lot of people are. And there's always going to be some corruption. There's always going to be some criminal proceeds that's impossible to get rid of. You know, the communist utopia is never coming. It's part of just the dead weight loss in an economy when you have different things. It's just human. So, but what would you rather? That or your freedom's gone? But the government has faced opposition from some of its own MPs, as well as several lobby groups, including the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the CPA Australia, and the Institute of Public Affairs. A number of politicians speaking before Parliament on Thursday about the proposed law noted significant community opposition, including fears the laws could restrict freedom and give authorities greater control. Well, it does. It really does. The proposed law would apply to all payments made to businesses with an ABN for goods or services, affecting major purchases like cars, boats, housing, and building renovations. The government has said the measure would not apply to individual transactions, such as private sales, where the seller does not have an ABN or cash payments to financial institutions. The proposed law also does not currently apply to digital currencies such as Bitcoin. Oh, really? So what do you think will happen then? What do you think will happen? It won't take long before they'll amend it. 100%. I'll bet you a carton, guys. I'll bet you a carton. And then all the criminals will just start using crypto. Then it's the same argument. What's the difference? That's the thing. People who are advocating for crypto to be a safety mechanism to this, the government can just stamp their foot down, and they'll catch it at the accounting standard, or they'll catch it, put pressure on the consumers. MPs flooded with community objections. On Thursday, Labor's Shadow Assistant Treasurer, Stephen Jones, moved an amendment to the bill to include the words that it recognises the importance of cash for conducting transactions around Australia, and notes the concerns that have arisen in some parts of the community about the bill. See, this is the thing. This is what our leaders are spending time on, this. Mr. Jones told ABC News Australia, Australians who had any concerns should make submissions to the inquiry being held by the Senate Economics Legislation Committee. See, this is the problem. We already all made inquiries to Treasury, and Treasury won't even release them. We contacted our members in the House of Representatives. They didn't even have the decency to listen to the speeches from those concerned. I mean, isn't it just rude? If your constituents are raising concerns, it must be. Yeah, I don't understand. I really don't. I don't understand, guys. So, submissions to the inquiry closed November 15th, and they will report back on February 7th, 2020. So there is still an opportunity. Honestly, I encourage everyone to make a submission. If you're seeing, like you're watching YouTubes of John Adams or Martin North, and they do their well-presented submissions in, don't get intimidated by what an economist is putting in. You know, don't get intimidated by what other people are putting in. Put your submission in. Be simple, be clear, be polite, and raise your concerns. And don't just use a copy-paste. You want to have variety. They want to show that people are individually worried about this issue. Senate's the chance. Senate's the only chance you have now. I mean, Labour and Liberal, they're right in the bed. If you can swing a few senators, there might be a chance to address this. So don't be too disheartened. So, there's been a lot of concern with the community about the impact of this bill, he told Parliament. There wouldn't be a member of this House who hasn't received representations from constituents in relation to it. He said while Labour would not be opposing the bill in the lower house, it would work with the government and crossbenchers to see its rigorous examination and ensure all of the community concerns that had been raised with federal politicians are thoroughly ventilated, investigated and dealt with. It is a significant provision with significant penalties, and we want to ensure there are no unintended consequences and that those community concerns can be dealt with, he said. He said, with Australians worried about the economy and low wages, it was no wonder members of the public are rightfully concerned when they see legislation such as this. They're saying, what is the real agenda? What's going on? Why is the government introducing this bill when they haven't dealt with any of the other issues that are affecting well-being at the household level, Mr Jones said. Queensland MP Bob Katter opposed the bill and reiterated his concerns in Parliament that the cash ban could breach people's privacy, citing George Orwell's classic novel 1984, exploring how Big Brother uses surveillance to control citizens. That is, I'm going to commend Nazim on summarizing Bob's, let's just say, entertaining and long speech in a beautiful paragraph there, a beautiful sentence. Good work. You did a really good job there. Good old Bob. I've heard that he likes to talk. So, MPs concerned with negative interest rates. Independent MP Andrew Wilkie said he would not support the bill, noting concerns it was about controlling people's behaviour at a time when many advanced countries were heading towards negative interest rates, a situation where instead of receiving money in deposits, depositors may pay regularly to keep their money with the bank. He told Parliament he had been approached by quite a lot of people in the community, not just constituents but people from right around Australia who had expressed a broad range of concerns. He said concerns included that it was designed to push people into the clutches of banks so that they have to engage in the banking system, to concern that it was a tax on people's fundamental right to use cash. So an interesting line of argument, which I think has some merit, is if Australia does eventually reach negative interest rates, cash will assume new importance, but this bill will diminish the ability of people to use cash, Mr. Wilkie said. And yes, he's right there. He's 100% right. But he said his biggest concern was that this bill is simply not necessary. There's already a requirement to report cash transactions over $10,000. The problem is those laws are not being implemented and enforced. Yeah, it's quite confronting actually to hear what Andrew Wilkie had to share about some of these issues, and particularly all the stuff at Crown. MP Rebecca Sharkey, who also opposed the bill, said she had strong reservations because it exemplifies the nanny state that the government pretends it has not become. Restricting people's ability to purchase products with cash and forcing them to use banks or other financial intermediaries for purchases over $10,000 is an unreasonable restriction on their personal freedoms, Ms. Sharkey told Parliament. She said while cash could be a vehicle for money laundering, it was grossly unfair to label everyone who paid in cash as a criminal. Yes, that's what it is fundamentally doing. She feared ordinary Australians could be caught out under the proposed law, given the defence under it was weak. It looks only at whether the person knew there was a real risk that the payment would in essence result in their committing a strict liability offence, not whether the person actually intended to make the cash payment for some nefarious purpose, she said. That's a good point. So there you go. So good old John Adams, if he goes through with it, he would quite clearly, he would quite clearly have intent, wouldn't he? And it wasn't a nefarious purpose, just having intent. So we are focusing on criminalizing their knowledge of risk rather than focusing on criminalizing black economy activities that we actually want to stop. Ms. Sharkey also noted the negative interest rate concerns that were raised by some members of the community, including some of her constituents. We have interest rates at an all-time low, essentially meaning it costs money for people with savings to have their money in the bank. But with this bill, we're not providing them with any alternative, and this is just plain wrong. So guys, let's, before we reflect on that, remember, I'll link over here, this is your opportunity now to make a submission. There's still time to do it. And I'll organize a live stream where a whole lot of us, I think, do it together. Contact every single senator. Reach out to your senators. Let them know. I mean, the House of Reps just shows you they don't care about their constituents, does it? Or they know better. I honestly would think most of them would not have time to go through all of the legislation. With the way the system is set up, they have to go out there and spruik to get back in. A lot of them will just default to the party line, because they have to, really. And they'll just, lean on the advice that they're given and think, oh, I've never used money for anything. Everyone uses their card. I use Tap & Co. Beep, beep, beep. But that's not the point. That's not the point. We need to make people aware of that. Reach out to your senators. Make a submission. Let your voice be heard. At the very least, you can proudly bitch and moan when you're old and more grey, that at least you said something against it. Very least. I don't know what that's worth, but probably a raised stein of coffee. Guys, take care. Like, share and subscribe. If you would like to help me produce this content and these type of videos, I have a Patreon subscribe style link below. Everything helps and I really appreciate it. I also have affiliate links that doesn't cost you anything and gives me a small kickback. Not as much as someone referring people to maybe a developer for a apartment sale, 70 grand. No, but it still helps and I appreciate it. Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend. And I am about to head out. What's the job today? Today is fixing a door. Take care.